In this video we're going to review percents. So percent, we know that that means that it's out of 100. Percent literally means per means out of, and cent means 100, just like century or 100 cents in a dollar. So percent literally means out of 100. So when we say something like 24%, that means quite literally 24 out of 100. We can say that in different ways. We could also mean 24 for every 100. Or we could think of it as a rate or ratio. It could be 24 to 100. And of course, ratios can be written as fractions. So it could be 24 to 100 written that way. 24 100ths even. So if we're faced with a question like 75 is what percent of 300? Let's talk about how to solve this. So we're looking for the percent, so we want to know how much out of 100. So unknown out of 100 is one ratio. And we want to match that up with 75 compared to 300, so 75 out of 300. And so we get a proportion, setting two ratios equal to each other, and then we solve for this, and we know how to do that. Just a couple of words here. The of 300, usually the word of is used in a statement about percents. That number matches up with the 100. So just like a percent is out of 100, 75 is out of 300. Now sometimes you have the word out and sometimes you don't, but usually the word of is there. So that word, the 300 goes across from the 100. Those are kind of similar things. And then the other number goes on top. So whatever 75 is out of 300, we want to see what that would be if it were just out of 100. Okay, so but now we have a proportion and we solve it. So 300 times question mark and 75 times 100, so 7,500. So we want these two to be equal. So we divide 7,500 by 300. And we get 25. And so the answer is 25%. 75 is 25% of 300. Okay. So that's an example where the two numbers were given and we were looking for the percent. But a question can come with that mixed around, so different permutations of that. For example, what number is 34% of 81.4? So now we have the percent, we have the of number, and we're looking for the other number. Okay, but we set things up similarly. So 34%, so that is going to be 34 out of 100. And what out of 81.4? And again, the of 81.4 tells me that the 81.4 goes in the bottom just like the 100 is. Okay, so then we multiply. So 81.4 times 34 is 2767.6. And here we have 100 times unknown. And so 100 times unknown has to equal this number. So we divide that by 100. And that gives me 27.676. And so that's the answer. That's not a percent, that's the actual number that is 34% of 81.4. By the way, a little check, a sanity check, which is always a good thing with math problems, is to make sure your answer isn't obviously wildly wrong. 81.4, right? So we know that 50% means half. So 50% of 81.4 would be like 40, a little more than 40, right? Half of this. So a little more than 40. So we're getting 34, we're being asked for 34%, so that should be less than 50%. That should be less than half. It should be somewhat less than 40. And sure enough, we got 27. That kind of makes sense. So if we had gotten something like if we'd gotten like 50 something, that couldn't be right, because that's more than half of 81.4. That would have been more than 50%. Okay. And so now one more permutation. You can be asked for the of number. What is that? So 17.3 is 90% of what number? So again, we've got 90. That's the percent, so that's always out of 100. And it's 17.3 out of what? So now the question mark, the unknown, goes down here. But once again, it's a proportion, and we know how to solve them. So 17.3 times 100 is 1,730. And here we have 90 times question mark. So question mark is 1730 divided by 90, which is 19.2. So that's the answer. 17.3 would be 90% of 19.2. And again, just thinking about, does that answer make sense? Yeah, because 90% is almost 100%. So 100% of 19.2 would be 19.2. 90% will just be a little bit less than that. 17.3. Yeah, it's at least in the ballpark. That's making sense. Our answer at least is not wildly off. So a little bit of a sanity check there. Okay, so that's how percents work, and you've seen an example. The three numbers that are involved, the percent, the of number, and then the other number. If you're given any two of them, you can find the third by solving a proportion, as you've seen.